Now that is a win streak for the Mets, 3 in a row over the Nationals on Tuesday. We talked about 2, now 3. This is a legit win streak, and the Mets doing it all. And once again, guys, starting pitching, setting the tone. And what Nolan McLean has done, and we talked about it, is the next guy, the next guy, the next guy. You're seeing them feed off each other, and you're seeing what made the Mets successful up until early June when they had the best record in baseball was their starting pitching. They lost Griffin Canning, was a big loss, but now McLean steps in and dominated. Clay Holmes had a nice start. David Peterson, he has been the king of this rotation when it comes to going deep into games, and he did that again on Tuesday at Nationals Park, going 8 innings of 1-run ball, absolutely dominant. Ryan Stanek shutting the door. Juan Soto on pace for 40 home runs. Everyone talked about Soto. You regret signing him. He stinks, blah, blah, blah. He's got 31 homers. Juan Soto continues to hit the ball out of the park, and he's going to end up with 40 likely. Mark Vientos, second straight game with a homer. Now you're in a position where you got to keep playing Swaggy V. You know, I think Ronnie has the most potential of the 4, but right now Ronnie's not hitting. Keep playing Vientos. He's hot. Get him in a rhythm. He's got to keep playing. Brett Beatty hits one into the second deck. You know, a guy that I've written off. Listen, you got to play him. You got to figure out how to get Vientos and get Beatty in the lineup right now because those are the hot bats. You can't keep switching up this lineup. You had Jeff McNeil even hit a home run. Everyone getting involved for the Mets in an 8-1 victory over the Nationals. And now Kodai Senga tonight. You know, now is a series you're thinking, let's sweep these guys. You know, the Nationals stink. They're ready for Cabo. They're ready to check out on their season. You know, you got to think about a sweep. And you got to think about becoming a Mets Daily Insider member by scanning that QR code right there. It's just $5 a month. We're giving away a pair of tickets. You know, no one since we announced that have become a member. You're missing out. You know, the people who are members, you're going to have a chance to win a pair of field level tickets to a Mets game, weekday game this season. So look out for that. You know, $5 a month. Scan that code. You get an extra weekly watch party, extra weekly video, and a chance at our giveaways that we'll be doing every month. Only to Mets Daily Insider members. If you don't have the $5 a month, just click subscribe and join us normally below. Click subscribe and smash that thumbs up. Every thumbs up, every share helps. So share the channel, share this video with your Mets fan family and friends, and follow me on all socials. That's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at Jake Brown Live. Appreciate that. Now, the bad news in Metsland, and you know, we're talking about it today because we kind of have a little bit more updates on it. Francisco Alvarez, a UCL sprain in his thumb. There is a chance that he will miss the rest of the season. Now, that's not set in stone. So, the latest is this. He will refrain from baseball activities for 10 to 14 games. So, the soonest if Alvarez came back would be mid-September. He's going to, miss past Labor Day, and then they'll reevaluate then. After that point, he will restart a hitting progression and eventually graduate to minor league rehab games where team officials will gauge if he can effectively play through his injury. So, some point mid to late October, they hope to maybe get Alvarez back. The other layer of this UCL sprain is that he's probably going to need surgery. Now, he can play through it and then opt for the surgery in the offseason. The surgery is about an 8 to 12-week timeline, so he would still be back for next season. But does he opt to have the surgery now and be out for the year, or will he try to play through it? An example that Anthony DiComo pointed to was Dustin Pedroia, who played through that injury and had an all-star year. Now, second base is a lot different than catching. This guy is catching the ball every day. He's throwing it back to the pitcher. His hand is on the ball every time. Every play, Alvarez is involved. So it's a lot different for a catcher than a second baseman, but a good sign that he played with it. Mendoza admitted Alvarez was pretty frustrated that he hurt the thumb sliding headfirst into second. A lot of his injuries, they might come from catching, whether hitting or catching a ball or a ball bounces off him. This one from sliding into second. So just an unfortunate sequence there for Alvarez. And listen, now you got to go with what you got. But like I've talked about in here, you got to think about going external. So let's look at the list. Now, a lot of people are saying, no, Mets are just going to roll with Sanger. I think it would be a massive mistake because now if Luis Torrens is hurt, you're screwed. You're stuck with Hayden Sanger. Hayden Sanger's not a big league catcher. The Mets got to stop messing around and thinking that he's a big league catcher. So here's the list that I put together. You see Martin Maldonado. Now, not great defensively, but I like that he was in the majors this year. I like that he played for the Padres, a team that you're probably going to end up playing if you make the playoffs in the wildcard round, a team that has had your number. I'm not saying he's going to know that much, but he might know what their pitchers like to throw and their tendencies, that maybe having Maldonado could be a competitive edge if Alvarez does miss significant time. He was DFA'd this year by the Padres. Listen, the numbers aren't great, but again, I still think he's more of a major league catcher than Hayden Sanger. 4 homers, 12 RBIs, 204 average. They're not good, but he was a major leaguer. Austin Barnes, he was on the Dodgers earlier this year. Recently, he was released by the Giants. So Austin Barnes, that's another name to keep an eye on. You see the numbers, 214 average, 0 homers, 2 RBIs. They're, again, not great. Only 42 at-bats in the regular season this year. But this is a guy that played for the Dodgers for the last decade. So, again, when you think about competitive edge, competitive advantage, maybe you're thinking about Austin Barnes because 10 years he was there. That's a guy who knows those pitchers, who knows that organization. So keep an eye on Austin Barnes. He's available. He was released from the Giants. Again, numbers suck to the minors, but I'm just thinking about guys that have experience in the big leagues for a while. Jacob Stallings, again, numbers not good. I understand that, but this is another guy who's been in the league for a very long time. He's been in the league, another guy, for a decade. Not going to do much for you. He's at 134 with 9 RBIs, no homers this year. But again, that's a big league catcher. Yasmani Grandal, much less of a chance. You know, he left the Red Sox minor league system in June. He wanted to be with his family. So a strong chance that Grandal is going to be unlikely because he hasn't caught since June. He hasn't been in the minors recently. So I put Grandal on that list, but he is an outside, very outside chance. And then the last one is a name that everyone brings up now on Twitter is internal. That's Kevin Parada. Mets don't really have anyone in AAA that, other than Sanger to come up. Sanger's obviously up now. Parada is in AA. He has been hitting the ball decently of late, but I'd be stunned if the Mets went with a AA catcher. I know he's got a lot of hype, you know, being a guy that was considered the Mets' top prospect after Alvarez, but has been wildly disappointing. He was a first-round pick in 2022. 9 homers, 43 RBIs. He's in 251 with a 320 on base in the minor leagues this season. He's played 82 games in AA. So if the Mets said, hey, you know what? We don't want to go external. We don't want to bring anyone external. If anyone gets hurt, maybe they say, Parada, you're coming up from AA. I don't think that would be the greatest idea. Why that graphic says Rico Garcia, please excuse that, over Jacob Stallings. That's hilarious, actually. I'm just noticing that now. Listen, we all mess up. So Jacob Stallings was with the Orioles. He was not with Rico Garcia. But that actually makes sense because Rico Garcia is on the Orioles. So there you go. It's a Rico Garcia for Jacob Stallings trade. So it does kind of line up. But those are the options. But, you know, I just think it's malpractice to stick internal. Hayden Sanger is just not a big leaguer. And I know you might say, who cares, just a backup catcher. You're fighting for a playoff spot, and this catcher is going to play 1 to 2 times a week. So do you want 0 for 8 every week out of that spot if he's got to play twice? And, you know, you're going to work Torrens into the ground. And, God, if Torrens gets hurt, and listen, catchers get hurt. Look, it happens every year to the Mets catchers. Happens every year to Francisco Alvarez. You might be in a position when he goes down that you are royally screwed. And then you have Sanger and then very much TBD. Maybe it is Parada. And I just think for a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, you can't be in this crappy a situation with catchers. And it's going to be on Luis Torrens. He's got to carry the load. But, you know, I just don't know if he's going to be able to play 6 times a week and be effective as a hitter. A guy who might be part of a 6-man rotation next week could be Brandon Sprro. And we'll close the show out with this. Is Brandon Sprro continues to light up AAA, and the Mets saw Nolan McLean come up and dazzle. I was there on Saturday. He brought this team back to life, and now they're on a 3-game win streak. Could Brandon Sprro now be the next guy in line to make his major league debut against the Phillies next week at Citi Field? And, you know, I think there's a shot. I think there's a shot that Monday you might see Brandon Sprro. Here's why. Because the Mets want to keep Senga on a potential 5-day rest, which they've tried to do. There may be an opening here. They had the off day Monday, but the Mets now don't have an off day here for a while. They play a bunch of games in a row. They're not off till September 4th. That is the next Mets off day. So if they don't, you know, they're going to probably need another arm if they want to keep these guys in potentially 5 days rest and go with a 6-man rotation. I think you might next week against the Phillies, potentially on Monday, see Brandon Sprro. Brandon Sprro, another dazzling start yesterday. He could be in line here to go Monday now. If he's on semi-normal rest, you may have Monday. 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 8 strikeouts. And he's brought his ERA down to 4.24. Remember, he was dreadful for the first 2 months of the year. But, man, since late June, he has been one of the best pitchers in the minor leagues. He's been fantastic. And I think it's time. I think it's time you see Brandon Sprro. So I hope they call him up against the Phillies, and I hope we see him. Mets Nationals tonight. Kodai Senga get that victory against Lord, and then the third game of the series tomorrow. I'm Jake Brown at Jake Brown Live. Scan that code, become a Mets Daily Insider, just $5 a month if you want to win free Mets tickets, field levels, fire seats to a game. And follow us at Mets Daily Show on Twitter. Subscribe to my YouTube at Jake Brown Live. Check us out on playback.tv. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Mets Daily. Thank you so much for watching. Smash that thumbs up. Comment. We'll talk about your comments tomorrow. Thanks for watching Mets Daily, everybody.